Hello and welcome back to the channel. I'm Jay, and in this video I'm trying something a little bit different. I wanted to start to share more and more with the community and the subscribers as we start to build this community, my collecting and my general sort of retro collection. It's something that I picked up and started building out again probably 2 or 3 years ago, maybe a little bit more, certainly early COVID. And I started to just kind of dig out my old consoles, my old games, the things that I'd still got from my youth, as well as start to buy and replace some of those things that I regret selling, as I'm sure many who have got back into this kind of collecting habit have probably done. For me, it was really, it's really been about just trying to relive that childhood and also rediscover some of those games that I loved and the things that I kind of grew up on. I've looked back at them through things like RetroQuest and started to look at games. I've also discovered new games, or new old games, which has been really interesting. And certainly through the comments, I've picked up a few things which I'll talk about as well. So what I thought I'd do, just maybe once a month, is just kind of sit down and show you some of the things I've picked up in that given period. So this will be roughly the things I've picked up in the month of May in 2024. And just kind of sharing with you. I don't go out looking for big sort of ticket items. I kind of add things as I come across them. I have a horrible habit of going down kind of rabbit holes of YouTube videos and just kind of spiraling, finding new things or remembering games from my youth and picking them up. So I thought I would just share with you the things that I'm getting as I go. Most of this stuff is kind of eBay or CEX, shamefully. I know that's not something that a lot of people in the UK are particularly chuffed with, but it's one of our very few options. I am trying to find new kind of retro game stores as well. So if you've got any recommendations, let me know. So we'll jump in. I'm just going to talk about some of the games that I've picked up, share some of those with you, and then yeah, we'll see how we go. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on these videos and whether you want to see more of this as I continue to collect and also hopefully grow the channel. So let's start with number one on the list. And this is something that I had as a kid and absolutely adored, and that is Mario Paint. So hopefully the camera is focusing neatly on that. I managed to pick up what I think is in a really good condition. The box is a little bit dinked around the edges, shows its wear. It looks retro, you can kind of see that here on the camera. But you can see that overall it's in really good condition. I've put a Perspex case on it just to look after it, but actually inside, the actual condition of all of the mouse pad, the cartridge, it's immaculate. It's almost like it's never been used, which may well be the case. So if you don't know, Mario Paint for the Super Nintendo was a unique blend of creativity and gaming. It was developed by Nintendo and released in 1992. The game has not only introduced me personally to digital art, but it also came packaged with the innovative Super NES mouse, which looking back now is probably the first mouse I ever actually used. So a gateway into what would become a career in computers. The game allowed players to draw, animate and compose music in a kind of fun and engaging way. It featured a variety of tools such as a stamp editor for custom creations and a music composer where you could arrange notes to create melodies. I spent hours on this as a kid, absolutely hours. Lots of fond memories of Mario Paint. Genuinely some of the most fun I had on my Super Nintendo. I used to just love kind of doing the pixel art and doing the painting, and just as a kid I'd have been probably 10, no, less than 10 when this came out. This was just great, and it did so much. By modern standards, of course, it probably doesn't really hold up, but for me as a kid, absolutely loved Mario Paint. So was really chuffed to get this. I got this one on eBay. It was somewhere in the region, I think, of about £30, which I thought was pretty good considering the condition. It genuinely is in really good condition. And then I think I spent another 10 or so on the Perspex case. I've got a few of my Super Nintendo boxes in these cases, just because it protects them. They're not like the kind of the plastic cases we're used to now. That was number one. Number two was actually a recommendation via my most recent episode of RetroQuest. So if you've seen the Mace the Dark Age video, I had a comment from a subscriber called Keith who recommended a game and asked me to cover a game on RetroQuest called Buck Bumble, which is this little fella here. So Buck Bumble on the Nintendo 64. I have never heard of this and have never played it. So I decided to pick it up. I will be covering it on RetroQuest. You'll probably see that video in a couple of months perhaps. But for those who don't know, Buck Bumble was developed by Argonaut Games and published by Ubisoft. It was first released on the N64 in 1998, and it's set in a futuristic version of London during the year 2010. Futuristic, not so much now, where a chemical spill has mutated the local insect population. The protagonist, Buck Bumble, is a cybernetic bee tasked with defending the garden from the mutated insects and thwarting their plans to conquer the outside world. It's a third-person shooter with a mix of flying and ground combat, so really looking forward to actually playing that and covering it for RetroQuest, doing some research on it to find out a little bit more. So look forward to that video in a few months' time. I think I paid about £15 for that on eBay. So Buck Bumble, a nice little pickup. Cartridge only. I don't tend to worry too much about buying things in boxes. I know I've just shown Mario Paint boxed. That's a little bit different. Certain games I will sort of seek out condition-wise, but a lot of cartridge-based stuff, I'm quite content just to have the cartridges. I will seek out the boxes for those that I really care about, and I'm sure as my collecting habit continues to evolve, I'll end up buying more and more boxed things in the future. But certainly when I started out, I just wanted to get hold of the game. I didn't really care how I came about it. I am starting to lean a little bit more towards boxes. So that's that one. On to the next one, which was again the result of a bit of deep diving after a RetroQuest episode. And this one was the House of the Dead Overkill episode. And I'd started to look at alternative light gun games post proper light gun and the sort of retiring of the old TV format. I thought they'd died, so seeing House of the Dead Overkill on the Wii was a bit of a surprise. And then I found out that not only was the Wii rocking shooter games, sort of light gun games, that actually the PS3, using the PlayStation Move controller, had its own range of shooting games, relatively limited, but it did again take me down a rabbit hole, so I picked up this. So let me show you the two things. First of all, we've got this, which is the kind of miniature version of what I'm about to show you. This is a little PlayStation gun to hold your Move controller. So for those games that just required the Move controller, you could dock your Move stick, whatever you class it as, in that top section, and then you could point and shoot and use this with the PlayStation 3 camera to play shooting games. And the game I'm going to talk about in a minute utilises that feature. But there was something slightly chunkier. Now this, when I came across this is the PlayStation Sharpshooter. I don't know how well the camera will pick that up. If I need to, I'll add some B-roll. This actually contains not only the Move controller, which you can see at the top there, but also the attachment, which was the kind of analog attachment or the nunchuck equivalent from the Wii, which again I didn't actually own. So when I went down this rabbit hole, I ended up buying not only the Sharpshooter gun, which I picked up boxed for I think around £40, but I also ended up buying with the game, which I'll talk about in a second, bundled with some Move controllers and the nunchuck. Now, I had to actually replace the battery in the nunchuck. I'm going to call it the nunchuck, it's not the actual name, because the battery wouldn't hold its charge with the one I bought, which wasn't a massive problem. I think it cost me £7 or £8 to buy a replacement battery, and it took me about 10 or 15 minutes to take the controller apart and switch that out. But what this basically allows you to do, and it's very similar to the controller that came out on the PSVR, which I do have somewhere around the office, which basically allowed you to play shooting games in VR. This does a similar job. So you've got your Move controller here to sort of target, but then the nunchuck actually allows you to use the analog stick to move around and interact with the game. And I was surprised to find that actually there are quite a few games that are fully playable with this, and most notably I think would be Killzone 3. So not only can you play that with a controller, but you can actually play it completely end-to-end with the Sharpshooter. So the stock kind of falls out here, you sort of hold it, kind of as I am now, and then point it at your camera and off you went. And it's surprisingly responsive. I was really, really impressed with it. The game that I've got to go with it though, which I'll talk about now, is actually, it's in the Time Crisis line. I'd never heard of this one, but it's called Time Crisis Raising Storm. And it's actually a bundle because it also includes Time Crisis 4 and then a pirate game called Dead Storm Pirates, which are all kind of on-rail shooters. So I picked this up to give it a go and to use the Sharpshooter on, and it was a lot of fun. It's a bit frenetic. It's not quite as good as, at least as, in my opinion, as the early Time Crisis is. There's not really any tactics to it. It's just full-on shoot. There's none of that kind of ducking, hiding, or anything like that. It's purely on rails. But if you've never heard of Time Crisis, Raising Storm, then it's a classic rail shooter, as I mentioned, developed by Namco Bandai Games, and it was released for the PS3 in October 2010. Like I said, it was part of that compilation, including the arcade versions of Time Crisis 4 and Dead Storm Pirates. And the game's best known for its action-packed gameplay. Like I said, it's very full-on, and of course compatibility with the PlayStation Move. And again, an accessory I don't own yet, but maybe I will, the GunCon 3 light gun. So there is actually a light gun for the PS3, although quite how that works, I don't know. And if it does rely on the old TVs, then that feels a little bit backwards to me, but I will check that out and see whether it's worth buying. The setting of Raising Storm, it's futuristic, so it takes place in the year 2030, so again, not that futuristic now. And you're part of a special forces unit deployed in South America to suppress a violent revolution led by a rebel leader. I think at the time it was most notable for its destructive environments and the intense shooting action. It is very full on, but very fun for sort of quick burst gameplay. So that was one of my interesting pickups this month. And then to finish off, I went to CEX and I picked up a few PS2 games. So first and foremost, let's start with Wipeout Fusion. So I had this back in the day on the PS2, really loved the Wipeout Fusion. I never really got much time on the early Wipeouts on the PlayStation, but I had a PS2 from launch. I had a lot of PS2 games over the years, loved my PS2. And Wipeout Fusion was one of them. It had a fantastic soundtrack and a really fascinating game. If you've never played it before, then it's a futuristic racing game developed by Studio Liverpool, and it was published by Sony Computer Entertainment. It was exclusive for the PS2, and it marked the 5th instalment in the Wipeout series. It was first released in Europe in February 2002, followed by a North American release in June of the same year. The game is set in the year 2160, so still truly futuristic, and introduced players to the F9000 Anti-Gravity Racing League, and it showcased a blend of high-speed racing and combat mechanics. It's kind of like grown-up Mario Kart, or at least that's how it used to feel to me. So that was a nice one. All of these PS2 games, by the way, I paid £1.50 for at CEX, so I was quite surprised by that and quite happy to add them to the collection. Another one was another game I had back in the day. That's Dead or Alive 2. So Dead or Alive 2, I mean, to be honest, you can see from the back, it probably wouldn't fly today. I don't know how that comes across on camera. We've got the character there in bikinis. Like a number of fighting games at the time, Dead or Alive had some questionable breast jiggling mechanics, but it was a really interesting fighting game all the same. And again, it was relatively early, I think, in the PS2's life. And I put a lot of time into that game. Thoroughly enjoyed playing that, especially with friends. It was great, kind of couch co-op. If you haven't played it before, it's a fighting game developed by Team Ninja, and it was published by Tecmo. It hit arcades in 1999 before making its way to the Dreamcast and the PS2 a year later in 2000. It's the second instalment in the Dead or Alive series, as the Dead or Alive 2 name suggests, and it offered an enhanced graphical experience and gameplay experience from its predecessor. It utilised something called the Sega Naomi hardware to deliver sharper visuals and more fluid combat mechanics. I assume that was an arcade thing though, rather than on the console. So again, £1.50, pretty happy to add that to the collection. The next one, and the last but one, I never actually played, and I still haven't played. So I don't know where the best place to play this is. Tell me down in the comments. But this is Canis Canem Edit, or also known as, or probably more commonly known as, Bully. Now this one, as I said, I never played back in the day, and I know that it's had an Xbox 360, or it had an Xbox 360 release, which I think was the more sort of definitive edition, and clearly in HD. I don't know which one to play when I do get around to having a go at this. Do I play the PS2 version, or do I pick up, as I don't already have it, the 360 version? Let me know in the comments whether you have a preference, or if there's a reason why I should pick one over the other. I'm leaning towards just playing the one I've got, but equally I might pick up the 360 version, as I did thoroughly love that console. So if you don't know what this is, then Canis Canem Edit, it's known as Bully in North America, and it's an action-adventure game developed by Rockstar Vancouver and released for the PlayStation 2 on October 17th, 2006. It's actually set in the fictional town of Bulworth, and it follows the story of a teenage rebel called James, or Jimmy Hopkins, as he navigates the social hierarchy of the Bulworth Academy, which is a private boarding school. It's an open world design allowing players to explore Bulworth Academy and its surrounding areas, and as Jimmy, players encounter various social groups like bullies, nerds, preppies, greasers and jocks, each with their own distinct social dynamics and status within the school. The game combines elements of third-person action with a real-time day-night cycle, including attending classes, which are mini games in their own right. So again, really fascinating game here. Please, if you don't know, it's from the developers of the Grand Theft Auto series. And they did a few questionable titles back on the PS2 around the core GTA experience. And this was certainly one of them that raised a lot of eyebrows when it came out, probably just because of the title, really. I mean, certainly in North America known as Bully, GTA and other games like it, Rockstar did like to kind of poke at the anti-games media as it was back then. So really glad to add that one to the list. And again, kind of crazy really what price that was. All of these, by the way, are complete manuals, good quality discs and everything. And then the last game is Devil May Cry 3. I did own this back in the day and played it to death. It came with a Monster Hunter demo, which again is kind of in the box, so truly complete. And this was a return to form for the Devil May Cry series. I thoroughly loved Devil May Cry 1, still probably my favourite, just because it really opened my eyes to that kind of style of gameplay. Devil May Cry 2 wasn't as good, at least critically received, which was disappointing, although I did play it and complete it. Dante's Awakening, this one though, was a return to form for sure, and it's actually a prequel. So if you don't know about Devil May Cry 3, it was developed and published by Capcom. It's a hack and slash game for the PS2, part of that series. It was released on February 17th in 2005, and the game is a prequel to the original Devil May Cry, and it delves into the backstory of the demon hunter Dante, and it's set against the eerie backdrop of a mystical tower. The game explores intense rivalry between Dante and his twin brother Virgil, who in later games you actually get to go on and play as. And the game is renowned for its challenging, fast-paced combat system that allowed players to use a variety of weapons and styles. Dante in the game can switch between 4 combat styles: the Trickster, the Swordmaster, the Gunslinger and the Royal Guard, each offering unique moves and advantages in battle. The systems introduce a level of strategy and personalisation that was really praised at the time and influenced the series and future instalments. I really like the Devil May Cry series. I haven't gotten into the most recent ones. Devil May Cry 5 is on my ever-growing pile of shame, which I do want to pick up at some point. But yeah, it is what it is. But this one was a great addition, and again, for £1.50, couldn't turn that down. I have and I've seen in CX multiple times, the HD collection on PS3. I'm not sure whether to pick it up or not, or whether just to keep to the originals. Again, if you've got any views on that, let me know in the comments. So those were my pickups for the period of May 2024. Honourable mention, it's not a retro game, but I did get around to picking up Hades, finally. I know, Game of the Year a few years ago. How have you not played it yet? But I was playing that on holiday recently while away with the family. I've got it on the Switch, which I think is a really nice way to play that game, and I'm thoroughly enjoying that. It's probably my first proper roguelike. I do own Returnal on the PS5, and I've started that game. Really, really like that as well. But I haven't been back to it, and we'll probably end up having to restart it at some point. But I thought I'd mention Hades, as that's the game I'm currently playing, and I might do that on stream at some point. So I hope that was interesting. If you want to see more like this, and you want me to sort of dip into the collection as I'm adding to it and cover these perhaps once a month, I'm happy to do that. Let me know in the comments. If you've got any thoughts on these games, if you remember them, then let me know. And if it's triggered any memories of other games, then let me know about those as well. I'm always looking for interesting, new, old retro games to sort of get into and play. So yeah, let me know. And if you are in the UK and you know of any really good retro game stores, then let me know. I'm based in kind of the Midlands, and there's only really one that I'm aware of, which is Entertainment World in Birmingham. Fantastic store, by the way. If you're in the area, check it out. But if there are others around the UK, let me know. And also the gaming sort of show and kind of a retro game fair scene. If there's any that you think I should absolutely check out, let me know. And if you'd like to see some blogs from those fairs or shows, or even those shops, then again, let me know down in the comments. Thanks for taking the time to watch this. I hope you enjoyed it, and perhaps we'll see more of these moving forward. Like and subscribe and all the good stuff. It really does help the channel as we try to grow this community of like-minded gamers. And I'll see you in the next video.